All right, folks, welcome in. It is a Saturday night, November the 22nd here after the Ring 4 Night of Champions card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia has concluded, and we're here to recap it. Glad that you are with us as we're doing the show first, exclusively here live on YouTube. Now, we should say I am merely the somewhat capable host, TJ Rives, here on YouTube. Our insider, Dan Rafael, is here. We got a lot of action to go over. I should say also, the podcast audience is hearing us after the fact, Sunday night into Monday. This is the recap on the pod feed, but you saw this live if you were with us on YouTube on this Saturday night, and we appreciate you being with us on the Big Fight Weekend YouTube page. We're dual purpose, Dan Rafael, on a Saturday night. How are you? I have flown all the way to Los Angeles, a longer way away from Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, than where you are in Northern Virginia. We're both a long way away in the United States. But we saw, I'm going to say this off the top, we saw an action-packed card with 4 world title fights. The most recent of those is David Benavidez having KO'd Anthony Yarde right before we have started this show. Welcome in. What are your thoughts overall on the card before we get to the Benavidez win first?
Well, overall, I thought on paper going in, I thought it was an excellent show. We discussed it at length on the pre-fight, and I've written about it. It was a terrific matchup in terms of all the title fights. None of the fights stood out as blatant mismatches or anything like that. And I thought, though, in execution, it was a little bit uneven. We're going to get to all these fights, but the first fight of the night on the main card of Abdullah Mason and Sam Noakes for the lightweight belt, vacant WBO lightweight title, awesome fight, tremendous action, start to finish. 2 guys, just all-out warriors in that battle. Just a really good fight. Will be, perhaps a fight of the year type candidate. It was an excellent fight. The next fight was Bam Rodriguez in the 3-belt unification against Fernando Martinez. That was a brilliant performance from Bam Rodriguez en route to the knockout victory to unify the titles. But it was after like one round. This is a complete mismatch. It turned out that way. Totally dominating. There was no question he was winning every single round of the fight. It was like a masterclass. I mean, it was like a man and a boy. And then you get to the next fight. So that wasn't a great fight, but it was a great performance. I'd make a differentiation between the two. Co-feature between Devin Haney and Ryan Norman, Haney challenging for the WBO welterweight title, was a masterclass type performance from Devin Haney. There were some exciting moments, at least in the first half, but Devin was so far ahead, he obviously felt like that was the case, and he became a lot more cautious, and it really was not that good of a fight, frankly. If you look at the CompuBox, for example, just very little output on both ends, but much worse from Norman overall than Haney, but still a great performance from Haney. Main event, kind of the same thing. Benavidez with a great performance against that Anthony Yarde, who just had really nothing for him, and it was just a matter of time till it got beat. You could just tell after, like, I don't know. I was thinking after maybe like round 1 or 2, like this is no contest. He was gonna get to him and knock him out. Our friends on DAZN kept talking about how he's starting slowly to build up, and they also were talking about how he's never really that good in the back end of a fight. Well, if you're giving away the first half of the fight and you're usually not that good in the second half of the fight, what's your game plan? Like, Yarde just looked like he had no fucking clue what he wanted to do. Well, I'm not saying he's a bad fighter. Just the game plan was awful.
And he was overwhelmed as the 3rd round became the 4th round, became the 5th round by the punching power, et cetera. All right, so there's a good summary of all of it. We're going to go specifically into these here in the recap mode on this Saturday night. We will get to some of your comments in a little bit. Hang in there. So let's begin with the Benavidez knockout. Again, he pummeled Yarde, especially in the last 2 or 3 rounds of the fight. The fight ends in the 7th round. He was impressive. I'm saying that. He defends the WBC title. Again, the main event belongs to him. As much as you want to say Yarde didn't have a game plan, et cetera, Benavidez is really good tonight. That's my assessment. Another thought or two from you.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. The fact of the matter is, on the one hand, you had a David Benavidez who was on his game against a Yarde that had no game or nothing to speak of. And if you want to make comparisons, now Anthony Yarde is 0-3 in light heavyweight world title fights. He got knocked out in the 11th round by Sergey Kovalev. He got knocked out a couple years ago also by Arthur Beterbiev. That was a fight that was in his hometown of London. And now he goes to Saudi Arabia. In this fight, he gets knocked out again. And, as they say, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. Can't say I'm surprised. every time he's ever stepped up, he's been beaten, because the 3 guys he's ever fought who were legitimate, like world-class level fighters, and the 3 guys I just mentioned are guys that all stopped him. Now, he had the great misfortune of when he did get these title opportunities, they were against like really, really top-level superstar caliber fighters. He didn't get to cherry pick against like a softer touch type of champion. Maybe in a different situation, if he was fighting another guy that was just a good fighter but just had a belt, maybe he would have been able to get over that hump and win the title. But when you're coming up against guys like Beterbiev, Kovalev, and David Benavidez in his prime, that's a real problem. So he just didn't really have much to show. He never really landed a good solid punch, I didn't feel like. And the main thing was, and I haven't looked at the compy box yet, I will when we're done here, the number of punches that David Benavidez was throwing and landing. He had to out-throw him and outland him 2-1 at least. He threw I'll use the word you like, TJ, a bevy of right hands and left hooks.
Yes.
Had him backed up against the ropes.
What was the one moment?
Shots, and he would throw back maybe one, and there was no chance he was going to win at that pace.
What was the one moment where Yarde was trying to hold his right arm, and Benavidez literally, and I think Mike Coppinger on the broadcast said it was 14 or 15 consecutive left hands. He just wailed on him. Bang, 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 bang. And swollen face, bloody nose, maybe even the right eye, like the eye orbital swelling. It was just going to be a matter of time, and he pummeled.
Well, and I thought when David finally got him up along the ropes there in round number 7, as he was teeing off, he landed a good left hook. A couple seconds later, landed another good left hook. He still hadn't extricated himself from the ropes. And then when he finally landed a third left hook, which really rocked his head back and forth, at that point, the referee, Hector Afu, stepped in and made a very perfect stoppage, in my opinion. It was just a matter of time. If he hadn't stopped it then, maybe Yarde would have lasted a little bit longer. Maybe he would have made it out of the round. But that fight was going to be a knockout at that point. It was very obvious. Yarde was breaking down. You mentioned his nose was bloody. His face was starting to swell up. And David Benavidez hadn't taken really any significant punches. He had like a little nick, I think, that he mentioned in his post-fight interview. Maybe Yarde caught him with like a nice right hand earlier in the fight, but that was like one shot, whereas Benavidez caught him with about, probably 20 good shots.
Oh, and again, Benavidez said after the fight to DAZN in the ring to Claudia Trejos, I thought this was a B+ performance. I gave him an A. I mean, he gets the guy out of there, looked impressive. Again, some were remarking on social media, etc., that Benavidez maybe not as cut, looked a little, maybe a little flabby in the middle or whatever. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I mean, if you're,
David looked like tonight the way he's looked every time I've ever seen him.
Yeah, and by the way, the hands were quick and the punches were powerful. So who cares, right? Ultimately. So
all I know is David Benavidez can look a little bit like Larry Holmes if he wants, and Anthony Yarde can look all cut up and ripped, and you saw what happened. It doesn't make a difference.
Exactly. All right, so that leads to the next question while we're in the recap mode. What do we think is next? How realistic is it that he gets an undisputed shot at some point with Dimitri Bivol? Artur Beterbiev is lurking out there. What else is realistically out there for Benavidez?
Well, what he said in the ring is he's going up to cruiserweight and he's going to challenge the unified title holder, Zurdo Ramirez, on Cinco de Mayo, which will be a big fight for the Mexican community and for boxing in general, probably in Las Vegas. So now that came as a little surprise, not to say that it wasn't something that I thought could happen, because in the pre-fight, he spoke about the prospect of that fight was offered to him. He would definitely take the chance and jump up another weight class to go after it. So for him to so cavalierly say in the ring, I'm fighting Zurdo Ramirez on Cinco de Mayo, I wasn't quite sure about that. So I made it in the few minutes between the time that the show ended and here we jump on to discuss everything. I was all over my text messages, and I texted with people at Golden Boy who are the promoters of Zurdo Ramirez, as well as other people involved with David Benavidez. And while they basically say that's what we'd like to do, that's what we're working on, nothing is done yet by what they tell me. There's still a good, reasonable chance that Zurdo Ramirez, coming off of a shoulder surgery, might have a tune-up fight, January, February. Not necessarily a big fight, but he certainly could find himself on a card in the very early part of the year. I don't think you want to be Zurdo coming off of a very long layoff, coming off of he fought last in June, so he'd be coming off of not a huge layoff, but if they fought in May, you're talking about 11
almost
10, 11
a year.
Months. Almost a year.
Almost a year.
And also the surgery. You don't want to go into a fight of that caliber not knowing if you're sound physically. And I think it would behoove him, frankly. I'm not a big lover of tune-up fights, but when you're coming off an injury like that, you probably should take it as long as you're matched appropriately. So the name that they've mentioned as a possibility is the cruiserweight that recently won that Golden Boy promotes now, Robin Safar, who is a good fighter, but I don't think he's certainly not at the same level as a Benavidez. So that might be something they do. But the bottom line is the plans, even if not done, is the fact that they're going to try to make that fight, because Bivol, nobody knows when he's back because of the back surgery. Beterbiev is certainly a viable opponent. But if you're Benavidez, why wouldn't you go for that? You have a danger fight with Benavidez. You got a danger fight with Zurdo. Why not take Zurdo, which I think would probably pay him more money, number one. And number two, you get to go back to Las Vegas where you've wanted to fight. You're fighting another Mexican, David being a Mexican-American, Zurdo being a Mexican national. That makes it even a bigger fight in some ways. And it's on the Mexican holiday. So that's where he wants to take over. I mean, with Canelo still viable on those dates, but certainly not fighting in May, I don't think, this coming year, because of all of what's going on with him and with Turkey, and him also coming off of his surgery. And whatever in the future, David's going to look to squat on those dates as the new face of Mexican American boxing. That's a tremendous fight, him and Zurdo Ramirez. I actually would. I'm not saying I'd rather see that than the Beterbiev fight, but I'm down for that fight. That's a really good matchup. And look, the carrot for him is Beterbiev doesn't offer him the glory. It's a title defense. If he fights Zurdo, he's got a chance to win two belts at cruiserweight.
At another division, right? Another division, as he's now also won in light heavyweight.
So he could become a three-division champion.
Yep. Big night for David Benavidez. And again, a lot of people just joining us here. We will get to some of your comments. We're recapping the entire card. We've just gone over the main event fight. And again, David Benavidez, the biggest story. Early morning in Saudi Arabia, he took care of his business. It was not a lackluster effort at all by him. He was throwing punches and bunches at the beginning of the fight and dominated. All right, let's move to the co-feature. You touched on this. Devin Haney, early knockdown of Brian Norman, eventual decision win. Comically, one judge had the fight 6-6 with the knockdown, a barely 114-113 win, but pretty dominant performance. All right, the first thing I would say to you, when Haney scored the knockdown, Norman appeared to be in trouble. Did you sense maybe this could be over with quick, or what did you think on the welterweight title fight there as it began with a quick knockdown by Haney?
Yeah, he got the knockdown. It was a clean, hard knockdown. He scored with a left hook and then came behind it with a very solid right hand, which is really what did the most of the damage, put him on the deck. He got up, he was shaky a little bit. I think he had also a nose injury as well. And so while I was impressed by the knockdown, Haney showed, still the quick hands, even having moved up another weight class. I actually had the feeling when that occurred that, he's hurt, but he's going to get through it, and it's not going to be the end of the fight. I say that because I've seen, they made the reference on the broadcast, which is what I was exactly thinking. If you remember when he fought at 140 when he challenged Regis Prograis for the WBC title. In that weight class, he also scored a knockdown, and it looked like, maybe he can get him out of here. And he never came close. He won every round other than, beyond the knockdown round. He won every other round of the fight. But I didn't think the fight was over at that point. And I thought Haney, though, overall, although once again, there was very low output in terms of the punches from both fighters, in the entire fight, there was only one round where either one of them produced double-digit connects, according to CombiBox. That was in round 2, when Devin Haney was credited with landing 14 punches. The rest of the fight, nobody landed anything. But Brian Norman, for the entire fight, never landed more than 6 punches in a round. You're just not going to win like that. At least Haney was landing like 8 punches.
How gun-shy, right? How gun-shy do you think Norman was after the early knockdown? How much weight do you put on that?
How much? What'd you say? How was gun-shy was Norman?
Was Norman gun-shy in your mind after round 2? What do you think?
I mean, I think he was a little hurt. I mean, he obviously wasn't looking to get mixed up into a war right there. I think that it impacted him for sure. But I think the nose was giving him more of a problem than just having the fact that he got knocked down. I've heard lots of fighters talk about, they get dropped. They're not so hurt. They're more embarrassed than hurt, to tell you the truth. And so I didn't think that was like a devastating knockdown. But it gives you the extra point, and he's already won at that point. He probably is feeling good about himself. I gave Brian Norman the first round of the fight, but then I thought that Haney pretty much dominated the rest of the fight. When it was all said and done, I don't think there was any question, who the actual winner of the fight was. That was, to me, it was like a clear-cut kind of thing. I had Devin Haney winning 118-109. If you wanted, there was maybe 1 or 2 other rounds I considered giving Norman, so maybe have it like the 2 judges that were the not ridiculous judges, one who had it 117 to 110 and the other had it 116 to 111. 114, 130 is, to me, is just crazy. That's crazy town. That mean, like you said, that's if you don't score a knockdown, that judge has to fight a draw, which is just ridiculous. I don't see how you can win if you don't score a knockdown of your own and you don't get a knockout. I just don't see how you win a fight if you only land literally never more than 6 punches. That's the most. There was a bunch of rounds where Brian Norman landed like 2 or 3 punches the whole round.
Yeah,
you're not going to win like that.
I just thought I thought he was very apprehensive until about the 8th or 9th round that he was going to get countered. The way that he got countered early on in the fight with a left hook and got hurt, and then he eventually got dropped by the right hand. Again, full credit to Haney moving up to 147. Quick thought from you. He looked thicker. He still looked fast at welterweight. We had questions about that. He answered a lot of those questions tonight because he was the tougher probably of the two fighters at 147. That was interesting.
Well, the reality is he probably should, as he said, and I agree with him, he probably should have been at welterweight, a few years ago, but there was so much at stake, so many bigger fights for him at the time, so much money involved, whether it was at lightweight when he was becoming on the way to undisputed, and then the opportunity at junior welterweight. So maybe it was a couple of fights ago that he should have been in that weight class, but he got there, and sometimes the opponents got a lot to do with it. He looked pretty good. I mean, again, it wasn't the most exciting fight, but that's Devin Haney. If you go into a Devin Haney fight thinking you're going to see something spectacular in terms of action, then you just don't know what you're looking at. So you always have to have the certain kind of a normal type of expectation. It's like I covered a ton of Floyd Mayweather fights. I always knew he was going to outbox guys. I never expected he was going to be in these wars. So even when you got like a fight that might be a little bit more entertaining than your typical Floyd fight, you were kind of really thrilled about it. So for example, you see him fight against like a Miguel Cotto, and it turns out to be a much more entertaining fighter. Marcos Maidana. Haney is capable of being those types of fights, but tonight was not one of them. But that said, it sure was a lot better entertainment-wise than it was when he fought against Jose Ramirez in the May fight. That was one of the biggest stink bombs I've seen in a long, long time. So listen, I'm a Devin Haney fan. Credit to him. He had a game plan. He stuck to it. He won the fight. A lot of people picked Brian Norman because he was real hot and it would look good in his last few fights. So he was, and I thought that Brian would win the fight. So, we got it wrong on that one. But I'm happy for Devin Haney. I mean, he gets a bad rap. The guy, all he does is fight top opponents. And, people want to continue to harp on what happened against Ryan Garcia.
And by the way,
it's not fair.
Yeah, we'll talk about Garcia in a second. By the way, just a commentary, and I want your comment. They put Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn on, and Conor Benn's going on and on about how he didn't do anything the whole fight. He fought scared, blah, blah, blah. Sorry, Conor Benn has not won anything of significance, even with the Eubank win last week. Conor Benn also caught using PEDs, by the way. Settle down, my man. Devin Haney was undisputed at 135. Listen to me sounding like his PR guy, Rafael, on a Saturday night. Devin Haney moved up to 140 and won over Regis Prograis. Devin Haney now moves up to welterweight, a third division, and beats an unbeaten fighter that had scored 3 straight knockouts in championship fights. Settle down, Conor and Eddie. Yeah.
He has the win against Lomachenko. He has 2 wins on the road against Kambosos. He's got wins over guys like Linares, who may not have been at their peak, but was still very serviceable at
Prograis.
I mean, Prograis was the champion, and it was in his, was defending his title. He won literally a 12 round to 0 shutout and scored a knockdown. So again, for Conor Benn, who, I got nothing against Conor Benn, and I was a big fan of his father's also. But like you said, it's ridiculous. So he can talk all he wants. Let Conor Benn hasn't even won so much as the fucking British title. He's never won the Commonwealth title. He sure as hell never won the European title.
Correct.
And he sure has not won a world title. And as you said, he did a suspension for a blatant PED violation. And he has, obviously, you can't take away the win he had against Eubank a couple weeks ago. But by the way, let's not forget he lost in the fight against Eubank in the first one they had. So, they're out there, and I understand it. He's spreading his wings a little bit. He's preening like the peacock with his tail out off the big win. But Devin Haney's got more accomplishment in his little finger as a professional boxer than Conor Benn has in his entire body at the moment.
Okay. So that leads us, therefore, to this. Ryan Garcia put on social media that he bet $50,000. I don't know if he showed the betting slip. Maybe that's what he was signing the other day on social media, was his bet for Devin Haney. That he bet $50,000 on Haney to win. Is this leading us to a Haney Ryan Garcia rematch at 147? Is that possibly next?
Yeah,
I know.
it's definitely
You've been
not
talking
next.
about Garcia and Barrios would be next.
No,
Do
it's
you
not
think
next.
Garcia and Barrios remains next? Yeah,
Absolutely. Boxing is like, it takes time to play things out. Nobody really ever generally rushes into these things. There was a big movement to make a rematch between the two after the fight. They were put on the card in Times Square by Turkey. And if they had won those fights, the rematch was done. Ryan Garcia lost to Rolly Romero. And even though Devin Haney won, it was a horrible fight. So therefore, even though Turkey still could have gone forward with it if he wanted to, he made the right choice and said, you know what, I'm going to take a step back from that. But now there's a reason why maybe it will work, because Haney came through and won the fight against, in the fight against Norman, and win another title. He's now a 3-division champion. Devin Haney is in position. It was maybe not a great fight, but it sure as hell was watchable. And then you have Ryan Garcia still coming off the loss to Romero. He's going to fight Barrios. That fight, again, as I wrote, Ryan said he signed a contract, and I have explained ad nauseum that he can sign anything he wants, but there's lots of other parties that have to sign and agree to things before a fight is official. But it probably will get done. So he'll fight Barrios most likely in February. If he wins that fight, now he's the WBC champion, and Haney is the WBO champion. And it's a fight that the two sides want to reconvene and try to make the match, whether Turkey's involved or not. Then it's absolutely a fight that can be made. And obviously there's a storyline. There's a lot of animosity there. Everything that happened with the first fight with the knockdowns will be relitigated. All the shit that went down with Ryan Garcia's failed drug test, with him missing weight, with everything. There's a lot of drama in that fight as far as all the storylines and all the stuff going into it. I have no doubt in my mind that should they come out, if Ryan wins that title against Barrios, that they probably would look to do that fight. Would it be the next fight? Maybe.
Yeah.
Would it be one more fight after that? Possibly. But that fight is going to happen eventually. There's too much money and interest and everything around it for it to not happen.
Again, I love Dan's insight. We're live on YouTube on this Saturday night. Again, for the podcast audience, you're hearing it on the normal timeline, Sunday night into Monday morning for the recap podcast. Full disclosure, I'm in Los Angeles as we do this live. I have flown all day today with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers NFL travel party. I'm part of the Buccaneer radio broadcast. We play the Los Angeles Rams Sunday night. It's a crazy weekend on the West Coast of the United States for me, but we're here live on this Saturday night. And if you're live with us on YouTube, we're going to get some comments coming up. If you're seeing us later on YouTube on demand, thank you for finding us. Comment on the video down below. That helps us in the algorithm. So even if you're seeing us after the fact, comment on the video with your thoughts on what we saw from this card. Benavidez wins by knockout in the main event. Devin Haney in the co-feature is victorious. And now let's move down to Jesse.
Hold on, TJ. I'm looking here. I see our man C. Miller, 1236, just shot us like $4.99 bonus.
We love it.
Appreciate that.
We'll take your money. To him. I didn't even see that on YouTube. Rayfield needs some collections because he's trying to buy young Rayfield some gifts, buy him some food. I need food for the twins. The twins want a new car, which they're not getting for Christmas. So shoot us some stuff on YouTube. We love it. Thank you for the gifting and the money.
Make sure you send me my $250.
Yes, we got to split we got a revenue share going. You and me. We might be able to buy a Happy Meal by the end of the night tonight. On this, thank you for that. All right, so let's.
I think that's our first.
We do. Thank you. I think so. Yes, on the revenue and on the live show. All right, so moving down the card, Jesse Bam Rodriguez becomes the 3-belt unified junior bantamweight champion, and really from the jump against Fernando Martinez of Argentina, the San Antonio guy. Bam goes all the way to Saudi Arabia and dominated. I put that word up there. He dominated him, and then he eventually knocked him out with a big left hand. Dan, give us your thoughts in the recap mode here on this Saturday Night Live.
Enjoy Bam Rodriguez right now, because this is a young man who is absolutely in his prime. He may only be 25 years old, but in these smaller weight classes, you're in your prime when you're that age, especially as long as he has been boxing so far as a pro. What does he not do? Like, his defense, very sound. Offense, obvious. Footwork is among the best in the business. Jab, there. Willingness to fight the best fighters, there. Fought in multiple weight classes, there. Has a great team behind him, whether you talk about Robert Garcia, who's been with him his entire career as a manager / or trainer. He's obviously with Matchroom Boxing. They've done a tremendous job with him to bring him certain opportunities. And he's also just an extraordinary, likable person. I've had the chance to talk to him and meet him and talk and get to know him a little bit over the years. Just a first-class guy. I mean, he embodies everything that's right about boxing. Doesn't cut corners. It doesn't seem, comes in shape, takes it seriously, and is willing to fight the best. And he shows up in shape and goes to work every single time. He did that exact thing tonight against Fernando Martinez. By all rights, he should have been the undisputed champion tonight. But because of the sanctioning body nonsense that we deal with all the time, Fernando Martinez ended up vacating one. He had unified 2 titles against Ioka in their first fight, which was the fight of the year.
Right.
But after that was over, he had you guessed it, TJ, an IBF mandatory. So the IBF doing IBF things. And so he ended up vacating that title to go forward with the rematch against Ioka and defend the WBA belt that he had won against him. So that IBF belt ended up is now held by Willibaldo Garcia, who's actually going to fight in Saudi Arabia coming up on the Inouye card in December. And so now he's got 3 belts. But Bam Rodriguez obviously is the #1 fighter in the weight class. He already now has 3 belts and the ring belt and the lineal belt. Put that in the perspective as he's a guy who had won the title in that weight class, went the WBC title, went down in weight and unified titles at flyweight, came back up to junior bantamweight, knocked out Juan Francisco Estrada, who's going to be in the Hall of Fame someday, in a great performance to win the WBC title. In his fight before this one that took place this past summer, he knocked out Cafu, who was undefeated, to win the WBO title, went right into this unification against Martinez. Now he's got 3 titles, and it was like a big week for him, as we've discussed, as they talked about on the broadcast. He left his pregnant girlfriend. I guess they're not legally married, but they're together for many years and have 2 children together. While she was pregnant, knowing that there was a very good chance that she was going to deliver their child while he was away. But, you know, the legacy at stake for his career, the amount of money that he was going to put in the bank for the family, they decided that it was worth it for him to take the trip. So he missed the birth of his son. His son was born on Wednesday. He skipped out on the open workout, understandably, and watched it on FaceTime. And so he sounded like, you know, he said in his interview in the post fight, like, I could cry right now, because he was still sort of disappointed and emotional about the fact that he missed the birth of his son. But then on the other hand, he says, look, he'll understand, you know, when he's older, and I explained it to him. But I did this for my daughter, for my girlfriend, for my son. And
the millions.
You know, he's got another belt to hold up, and he's got millions of dollars to go in the bank account Monday morning.
I thought from the very beginning of this fight, while we analyze it, he had some power punches, was picking his spots, and Martinez just did not have punching power to do much of anything to disrupt Bam Rodriguez from doing what he wanted to do, and he wore him down and knocked him out. What do you think?
I think he had the power. He just couldn't deliver the power. I always think about what my old pal Teddy Atlas from our ESPN days would say. You can have the greatest, you know, bombs and missiles and weapons and ammo that you can possibly have, but you need a delivery system. And if you have nothing to deliver that power with, then what good is it? And Bam Martinez completely negated what Puma Martinez had to offer. And other fighters have not been able to so much do that, but he just took away everything. If you watch the Ioka fight, the first one in particular, I forget the number, but he threw like freaking 1,100 punches or something in that fight. He was so far below that output against Bam. It was because Bam was coming back with stuff, and his defense is really sound, and he was kind of worried about what was coming back because he has power also more than Ioka does, and Ioka is not the athlete and doesn't have the speed as
another thing that I noticed, and I even commented, Sergio Mora commented on this. Bam was giving him different angles. He'd hit him, he'd move sideways, he'd move laterally. He was not an easy target. He didn't stand in front of Martinez, and Martinez had no answers for that, right?
If you watch Bam Rodriguez fight, anytime you watch him, okay, obviously you're watching to see what punches he's throwing, what he's landing, and what's going on. But I always try especially with Bam, because it's so good and so fluid and so pinpoint, I sometimes don't look at the punches. I spend some of my time, if the camera angle is correct, I watch his feet, because his feet are so perfectly in position all the time. You know, they talked about it. It's very obvious if you watch any number of his fights that the footwork that he has is just really almost perfect. He can move the way he wants, whichever direction. He can go lateral. He can back up. He can go forward. But he can do it. You know, he can, you know, move on a dime. He's not like a speed demon, but it's enough to really take anybody out of their game. And he just has such a good innate understanding of how to move and where to put his punches and how to have his body placed. You know, these are the kinds of things they work on endlessly in the gym. We see the finished product on fight night, But it's like the old saying: you're out there in the dark putting in your 10,000 hours, and he's done that, and he's got it to perfection, and he's done it so many times, and he's fighting against good opponents. So let's see, if Eddie Hearn gets his way, and Bam gets his way, and Robert Garcia gets his way, he'll fight the winner of the which fight is it? It's the Willebaldo is defending the title on that card that's coming up in what do they call it? The Night of the Samurai. That's the card with Inoue.
Correct.
It's going to take place at the end of
December.
December. So the outcome of that fight, we shall see, because what he would like to do, I think, is, and again, Turkey's involved with them, so maybe they can make it work. That if Willebaldo or if he loses the title or he retains the title against Taraji, that the ideal fight would be for Bam to fight the winner of that fight, Taraji or Garcia, to produce the undisputed champ. Now, he talked about in the lead up, I want this fight, meaning the one he just won tonight. Then I want the undisputed fight after that, and then I'm going up in weight. So he'll move up to bantamweight and look to try to do some damage up there. And eventually, as we've discussed, if Inoue is still at 122 or Nakatani is still hanging around, those are major fights in those weight classes, huge fights.
And again, for Bam Rodriguez, that's 9 straight title fight wins. That's 5 straight knockouts in title fights for him. So he is delivering.
He's a pound for pound guy right now, TJ.
Yes, and deservedly so.
He's not number. Look, the top 3 are, to me anyway, and I think most people agree, in whatever order you're going to put him. You got, certainly Terrence Crawford, Alexander Usyk, and Inoue. Once you get past those 3 guys, if you want to tell me you got Bam there, 4th, 5th, 6th, I can't argue. I mean, who else is there going to put there? Maybe you can put Bivol is in the conversation. Even off the loss, Beterbiev maybe in the conversation. I mean, those are the types of guys we're talking about. Canelo probably drops down a little bit after losing the way he did against Crawford. But there's no doubt that Bam Rodriguez is one of the elite boxers in the world. He epitomizes the sweet science. He's entertaining, but he boxes and he punches. There's fewer guys that are more complete. He does everything well.
All right, give him a lot of credit, and we'll recap the 4th of the 4 title fights. This led off the main card of the title fights, and that's Abdullah Mason, unbeaten American out of Cleveland, Ohio, outslugging Sam Noakes of England for the WBO lightweight title. Full credit to Noakes. He took a lot of punishment, bloody face, busted nose, cut eye, swollen face, kept firing back. But I just thought Mason was just better, especially as the fight wore on. So Abdullah Mason does get the decision win in this one. Dan, what are your thoughts as he becomes a world champ? And am I correct? He's the youngest world champ now in professional boxing by virtue of this win.
Yeah, we're sort of saving the best for last. This may have been the first of the 4 title fights, but by far and away, it was the best. No matter what whether you like the other 3 fights or not, there's no doubt that just in terms of the pure sort of unbridled action that this fight produced, it was clearly the best fight of the show. He is at age 21, now the youngest active male world champion in boxing. The previous, the guy that he surpassed was his top-ranked stablemate, Xander Zayas, who won the vacant WBO junior middleweight title back in July. He was 22 years old when he won the title. He has since turned 23. And here you now have Abdullah Mason, 21 years old, coming off an absolute war with Sam Noakes, who put up a great fight, even if he was sort of behind pretty much the whole way. And Mason got the job done. I mean, it was very obvious, and they talked about it on the broadcast also, but I was noticing the same thing. He certainly could have made the fight a lot easier for himself. He had so much more length on him. He had better boxing ability. He had quicker hands, quicker feet. He could have definitely been, I'm not saying make it boring, but if he had taken a little bit more time on the outside and used the jab a little bit more and, still could have been entertaining, but not as physically demanding and grueling as it turned out to be, he could have won the fight, way easier in my opinion. But his mentality is he likes to fight. When I think of fighters like that, I think about guys I've always enjoyed watching. Oscar De La Hoya could box with anybody but love to fight. Shane Mosley could box with anybody but love to fight. Meldrick Taylor could box with anybody but love to fight. Those types of fighters. And Mason seems to have that sort of thing in him also, where he knows he can box a guy, but he likes to get in there and mix it up and fight. And that's exactly what he did. And Sam Noakes, who is much more limited in his abilities, but still had a big heart and some power and was there to fight also, was more than welcoming of that type of matchup. And they just put on a great fight. In the end, though, it was no doubt that Abdullah Mason was the winner. Two judges had it 7-5, 115 to 113. One judge had it 117 to 111, which is how I had the fight. But however you slice it, there was no question that it was Abdullah Mason that won that fight, deserved that fight. And you know what? I can't wait to watch him again. And even Sam Noakes losing, who cares? Bring him back, find a nice opponent for him. I'll watch Sam Noakes fight all day long.
Should be in the conversation for fight of the year just because Noakes kept firing back. I mean, he was hurt late in the fight and kept firing back, and Mason was just better. The crowd roaring there in Saudi Arabia. Yeah.
He had the headbutt with the cut. He had the nose.
Busted nose. Yeah.
It was a mess.
Full credit to him. And again, Mason gets the championship win. All right. So let's get some comments in from the Savages and see what they think live on the YouTube show on this Saturday night. Again, for the podcast audience, just indulge us. You're hearing it after the fact.
Yeah, we got another
after it is done.
There to our man.
Look at this. The Savages are donating to the Rayfield Retirement Fund here.
Oh,
you know what? I see somebody donate. I see somebody else donated $20 tonight. We may be going to Sizzler like in White Men Can't Jump. We're going to Sizzler. We're going to Sizzler.
We can definitely afford the Happy Meal now, I guess.
I think we can. All right, let me get to the top with the comments, and we'll get to as many as we can. Tyler watching says, "What's up, fellas?" Hello, Tyler. Dave says, "Hey, guys." Thank you, Dave. I mean, I'm just shouting out whoever. Let's see. Mr. Big Play Bray says that was a good card, 2 good fights, 2 okay fights. You would agree with that, right?
I gotta give the name of the person that threw in the $20 though. Looks like it's Sebs9384, who's now my favorite person on YouTube.
Seb, he's the favorite YouTuber for us. Sebs, thank you. You agree with 2 good fights and 2 okay fights. I think the Noakes. I think the Mason Noakes is a really good fight, by the way.
So what was the second fight they were referring to? Which was the one that they thought was good?
He's probably saying that the Benavidez Yarde would be the good fight out of the other ones, because as you mentioned, the other 2 were basically one-sided. Bam dominated, and Devin Haney got the early knockdown, and Norman didn't do anything.
So yeah, Noakes and Mason was a terrific fight, hands down, fight of the night. Going to be in the conversation on those lists of when people make the top 10 fights of the year for sure. The other ones, I mean, there were different reasons to enjoy them, but none of them are going to be our classics. Benavidez was.
But you saw action and you saw knockouts also, and so I mean, you had everything in this
I'll
show,
put it to you like this.
Including the main event with a knockout.
Always sort of my thought about a pay-per-view. What did you think about the matchups when you bought the fight card? How much did you like them? Obviously, in this card, pretty much everybody liked them if they bought it. They knew this was, quality matchmaking and good guys evenly matched to it, with no blatant, massive favorite. And then there's how did it play out? So in the end, we got a fight of the year candidate. We got an absolutely masterpiece, brilliant performance from Bam. We had a very, very good performance from Devin Haney with a knockdown. And you had another really good performance from Benavidez and a little bit better of an action fight and a stoppage. So I would say this: if you spent the $59.99, or you upgraded your DAZN subscription and bought their ultimate plan, which includes all the pay-per-views, I can't imagine you walked away from tonight's activity being disappointed, because you're just not going to get better overall events like that. I mean, you just can't snap your fingers and make them happen.
It's rare. Turkey Al Sheik's got the money. It's rare that you're going to get 4 title fights on the same pay-per-view, but you got it in the present day.
Well, that's happened on a regular basis. There's been a ton of shows with 4 title fights, but at this level of the competition, of the level of the fighters is not the same as a lot of those other ones are. Like there'll be a title fight, but it'll be a big mismatch.
All right, real quick, because the stream is kind of getting a little wonky. I'm in the hotel in L.A. Rayfield's in his home in Northern Virginia, and we've been here for a couple minutes. Kevin says Benavidez is going to cruiserweight, so he's never really going to fight Canelo, Beterbiev, or Bivol.
Well, hold on.
It certainly looks that way, right?
Him not fighting Canelo is not David Benavidez's fault, number one. 100%.
That's correct.
That's all on Canelo.
That's correct.
Number 2,
that's correct.
Bivol was ordered to fight him and declined and gave up the WBC title. So that's not him either. And Beterbiev was coming off the loss, and there was really that never even was a thing. So he may go to cruiserweight for the chance to win 2 more titles and make a shitload of money. And if he goes up there, I don't know if it's a guarantee that he would never come back down, but probably if he does go, he's probably done. But that's not on him. That's on on the circumstances of whether there was going to be a third fight between Beterbiev and Bivol, whether they were going to give him the opportunity. I mean, even if Bivol had not given up the title, that fight probably wouldn't have happened anyway, at least not yet, because of the fact that Dimitri had back surgery. That's not a guy I'm ducking. That's a guy saying,
And I don't think Kevin was blaming Benavidez. He was just saying he's not going to get one of those fights against one of those fighters. But again, if he chooses to move up to cruiserweight, he could always move back down. Like you said, he could move back down after he fights Zurdo if that fight is coming up
don't
next.
Forget this also,
as you were talking earlier.
But there's nothing that would preclude in the future of Beterbiev or Bivol going to cruiserweight either.
True.
I mean, remember,
quickly,
David has fought most of his career as a super middleweight. So he's the guy that's going to have to jump it up another weight class. Bivol's been fighting at light heavyweight his whole career, and so is Beterbiev. So they could take the chance to go up to cruiserweight also. Maybe if he beats Zurdo, one of those guys wants to come up and challenge him at cruiserweight. That'd be fine.
Dwayne watching says so much better than the Times Square card across the board. Absolutely. Of course, almost anything would have been better than that card. Jay Deep says Anthony Yarde had a great potential but ruined by a terrible trainer. Do you buy that he was not instructed well enough? Certainly he didn't have a whole lot of a plan tonight. I know Sergio Mora was saying early on in the fight, he's looking to counterpunch him. He definitely looks like the thicker fighter. That didn't matter. Benavidez was just faster hands, wore him down, and battered him. I'm saying that. But what about the trainer situation? Did that affect
I don't know what went on in the gym and how they worked that out. But so I'm not really one to really ever lay the blame solely at the trainer's feet. I mean, certainly they're part of the team and they're a big part of the team. But Anthony, he's had different trainers through his career. I don't think this is the only trainer he's ever had. And he's never gotten over the hump before. So he may have tried this guy, tried that guy, but at the end of the day, the onus is on you can be given information, but you're the one that's got to go and do the job. And, I'm not blaming the trainer. I think Anthony Yarde,
I got you.
He was behind the 8 ball from the standpoint that he didn't start boxing until he was 18 years old. He didn't have any an amateur fight till he was almost 20 years old. So you're always going to be behind the 8 ball when you're dealing with a guy like a David Benavidez, who's been in a boxing family his entire life and picked up gloves when he's probably like 8 years old. So I'm not blaming the trainer.
A couple more quickly. Let's see. This is Lexi Pointer says fight of the night was Mason Noakes. Do you guys think Mason started too fast? Can't always shoot off at first, almost cost him the fight. Did you think that Mason was going to wear himself out early on in the fight? I did not sense that. What did you sense?
I didn't sense that. He's 21 years old. He could have fought 15 rounds. He was in a great condition. Sam Noakes started off fast also. The styles meshed like that. That's just the way it was going to be. As I said before, he has the mentality where he could have made it easier on himself and done a little more boxing and taken a step back from time to time, but he likes to mix it up. So, no, I don't think he made a mistake. Maybe that's the type of thing that when they get back in the gym and they start to go over the tape and he talks to his dad and the people involved with his corner, or the matchmakers at Top Rank have a word with him, they may bring up that type of suggestion that, but I can understand here he's excited, right? He's fighting in a world championship fight. He's 21 years old. 4 years ago this month, he turned pro. That's unless you're Lomachenko or that type of fighter with that amateur career and you're 30 years old already, he's super pumped up. So I don't blame him. He did what he wanted to do. He was totally thrilled to be there, and he did what he had to do, and he made a great fight out of it. But the thing is, again, you can't do that every time. You're going to have a very short career.
Yeah, and plus, he took some shots. That's what you're saying. He took some shots fighting that way late in the fight from Noakes. Boxing God weighs in and says, Mason Noakes fight of the year. He says, Ben Eubank not fight of the year. He means the second one. And then he references a great fight. If you want to go back and YouTube something, YouTube up Los Cicero, Caveman Lee. I think they were middleweights, the old ESPN grainy Top Rank boxing. Is that really 1982? What a great reference from Boxing God. I love that.
That's a great fight. Noakes, I remember.
Yes.
I'll tell you. So I went one time. So Al Bernstein, our buddy, Showtime for all those years. But back in those days, he was one of the voices on the old.
He was on the call, right? Exactly. He was on the call on this fight.
So besides boxing, Al is an entertainer. He sings and he does these stage shows and all that. He's a very talented guy. So he would have these like boxing parties like on a Thursday or Friday night before a big fight. So I remember one I don't remember what fight it was at, but I think it was a big fight at the Mandalay Bay. And he did one of these shows in one of the lounges there, and a lot of the boxing people showed up, and it was like a boxing party. So he sang and he told jokes, and they showed some videos, and there was some trivia. And one of the things he did was he showed that fight, and people were going crazy. And that's like, still 30 years before the fight, was 30 years old, and people
it's
were
like
still
a
going
poor
nuts.
man's Hagler Hearns, and both guys down multiple times in the fight we're talking about. Los Cicero, Caveman Lee.
Yeah.
Great fight from 1982. Great reference. All right, a couple more comments, and then we're going to get out of here on the recap because we've been here. I'm looking for different people with questions. The aircraft carrier wants to know, Dan, what's next for Brian Norman Jr. after he calls it a train wreck loss, after the train wreck loss. I mean, his career's not over.
No,
but what do you think?
First of all, he's 24 years old. He lost a decision to a guy that's now a 3-division world champion that's been at the top of the mountain and has been one of the top fighters in the sport for a long time. Yeah, he had a rough patch there with the situation with the Ryan Garcia fight and maybe not an exciting fight, but certainly a win against Jose Ramirez. So that's happens. He's 24 years old. He got knocked down. I don't look at it like he took punishment. Devin Haney didn't land enough punches in the whole fight to really dole out significant punishment. So you know what? You go and you learn. Guys lose. That happens. So I have no doubt, knowing the fact that he comes from a boxing family, knowing sort of his old school mentality. Certainly I've known his manager, Jolene Mazzone, for my entire career. She knows what she's doing. They'll take a little break and they'll get him back in action. He's not done. I mean, he still, I think, has a bright future ahead of him. Keep in mind, by the way, welterweight is not the most loaded division in the world either. So, he'll get back on the horse and they'll put him back in position. And I believe he probably will be able to win another world title at some point.
By the way, the aircraft carrier agreed with me that Norman Jr. was badly hurt. I don't know how badly hurt, but clearly the eyes were not there. The legs buckled some with that left hook, and then the right put him down. He survived the round. He survived the distance, but I think he was a different fighter after that. I think it's obvious. All right, I'm looking for anybody else, different commenter in here. Mr. Do I have this? Limpete, if I have this right, says that Noakes and Mason was the fight of the night. I would agree with that. Anybody else that's different in here?
Hold on, TJ. Is there anybody that would disagree with that?
I don't think anybody would disagree with that. The classy alcoholic, is there such a thing? Never thought I'd be interested in a Haney Garcia rematch again, but here we are. Well, don't get too interested yet, because Ryan Garcia still has another fight with Barrios, and we'll see what that looks like. As Dan's reporting, that's coming in February. I'm looking for my name here. What is this name? This is Webb. I can't even remember. I can't even read all that. Webfoot Chicano. He says Jim Lampley has said multiple occasions he envisions Benavidez at heavyweight. Benavidez versus Usyk is a super fight. Can we settle down that he's fighting at light heavyweight? We don't even know what he can do at cruiserweight. Can we settle down on having him fight Usyk? Also, I'm just saying that.
I want everybody to take a deep breath and understand something. And I'm not knocking Anthony Yarde, but it was Anthony Yarde. He didn't beat Roy Jones. He didn't beat Saad Muhammad. He didn't beat Bob Foster. Everybody calm down.
He didn't beat Michael Spinks. He didn't beat any of the greats.
He's got 3 fights at light heavyweight, 3 solid wins. Beat Wodzik, former champ, legit. Had an excellent fight with David Morrell, who was a super middleweight, who he beat. That was a great fight and a clear win. Now he has a solid victory against Anthony Yarde, and they're wanting to fight Alexander Usyk. Now, that said, could I see David right now is 28 years old, 6 or 7 years from now, maybe see him as a heavyweight? Yeah, I think that's absolutely a possibility. But Alexander Usyk's going to be long retired, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
Before David Benavidez ever even sniffs the heavyweight division.
All right. Raimundo Marquez says Bam should be top 5 pound for pound at worst. I would agree with that. You would agree with that, as we were saying earlier. And
I don't know if I'm going to make him 5. I might have him 6. But
no, he says 5. Top 5. Yeah. Well, who would you put besides? You mentioned Crawford in a way, Usyk in whatever order. Who would be the 4th and the 5th if not Bam? He's got to be 4 or 5.
I probably would. You probably could put Bam in there, but you have to also take into consideration. I still think better BF, although a little inactive at the moment, and coming off of the loss. But because it was against Bivol, it was against one of the very best out there. Bivol is going to be on that list also, among those top 5. So I could still see the 2 light heavyweights ahead of Dan. I haven't really sat down and thought about it. But maybe.
All right.
Maybe I will.
Hardliner says, I feel the pay-per-view delivered for the money I paid. Amen on that.
Yeah. That's all you can ask for.
Who is this? This is Nightlife 111 says, good evening, gentlemen. I'm sorry to ask, but can you settle a debate I'm having with a friend? Which is bigger, Jake Paul versus Tank or Jake Paul versus AJ? You want to weigh in on that, Anthony Joshua?
In the United States,
what would you think? What would you say to that?
In the United States, it's Tank, but in the
US,
it's
but in the UK, it's Joshua. And Joshua was certainly the more accomplished fighter as a unified heavyweight champion. I'm saying that.
Well, it's also the more dangerous fight. Here's the thing.
Oh,
TJ.
Absolutely.
Couple things about it. It's an interesting question. Tank Davis fight was an exhibition match between a 200-pound or 195-pound contract weight Jake Paul against a 135-pound Tank Davis, who, maybe you would come in at 140 something. Most people would have thought that Tank would not have a chance in that fight because he's short, he's short-armed, maybe a good puncher in the lightweight division, but I don't know if his power is going to be devastating against a 200-pounder, and it was not even a real fight. Now, the interest becomes Joshua coming off of the knockout loss and the surgery, but like a foot taller, look, literally like 6 or 7 inches taller than Jake Paul, a much, 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 much bigger puncher and a more accomplished fighter in the professional ranks.
Yep.
I mean, honestly, I looked at the photos from their press conference they had on Friday, and literally, there's a shot I saw in the photo gallery, because we got a photo link from the promoters of to use for articles and things, where you have Jake Paul is literally, and you watch the video also. Jake Paul's looking straight at. He's looking like in the center of Anthony Joshua's chest, and Joshua's looking down on him. And I saw on Twitter, Jake Paul posted this. It was like a juxtaposition. The one photo was Rocky Balboa from the movie Rocky IV looking up at Ivan Drago. And the picture underneath it was the exact same thing, but it was the other where they were standing, and it was Anthony Joshua looking down on a much, much smaller and shorter Jake Paul. So the thing is,
I must break you.
So yeah, it's a bigger fight with Joshua. For the very least, it's an actual official fight. We don't have to use the word real fight, but it's an official sanctioned boxing match, and it's not a exhibition like it would have been against the Tank fight. And I think most people look at it and think that he's going to knock Jake Paul out in one round. And like honestly, if it goes more than like 2 rounds, people are going to think it's a fix.
All right. Quickly, a couple of others, and then we're gone. What is this? I am. All right. I am on the Hawkins Jr. He says, happy Thanksgiving, gents. Who was the biggest turkey of the night? Is that besides Turkey Al-Sheikh, who's not a Thanksgiving turkey?
Funny.
I'm a little punchy at this point with the one-liners. Biggest turkey of the night might have been Brian Norman at the end of the day. Brian Norman didn't do anything after he got knocked down for sure.
No. I say the biggest turkey was definitely Puma Martinez. Very disappointing performance.
He got hammered.
At least Brian
hammered
Norman
throughout the night.
At least Brian Norman got off the deck and showed some balls to try to get back in the fight, and never stopped trying, even if he was kind of outclassed a little bit. Martinez, I felt like kind of gave up when he just he couldn't do anything with the guy.
Yeah,
his body language was terrible.
Didn't have anything on the punches. I would agree. Maybe he is the turkey of the night. All right, again, for the fans on YouTube, thank you for being with us live. We did it exclusively on YouTube Saturday night. Make sure you like and subscribe. We'll come back and do things like this. Great nostalgia on the YouTube. You heard from David Benavidez and from Abdullah Mason in separate interviews on this YouTube channel. You saw the video of both. So be subscribed here, and we'll have all kinds of unique content here. Again, for the podcast audience, you've been hearing those interviews too, audio-wise. This is serving as the recap podcast, the Fight Freaks Unite recap podcast. Anything else in closing before we head to the Thanksgiving holiday? And you and I will be back right before Thanksgiving. We'll do something right before Thanksgiving. Anything else, Dan Rafael, on the Saturday night as we're live here?
No,
are we good?
I think we covered everything. We even got into Jake Paul and Anthony Joshua stuff. I enjoyed the show tonight, and now when we're done here, I'm going to get back to writing my articles for my Substack. So I hope that everybody out there that's watching will go on danrafael.substack.com and check it out.
Great stuff here tonight. Thank you to the YouTube audience. Again, if you're watching us after the fact, after it's live, comment on the video down below. That helps us out. There'll be some interaction with the comments. We thank you to all the commenters who were watching along the way live with us tonight. And again, on the pod audience, thank you for hanging in here with us on the podcast feed on Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. If you didn't know that Dan and I have the podcast, go find it. Big Fight Weekend podcast feed, Apple, Spreaker, Spotify. This served as both. My friend, great job tonight. The night again belongs to David Benavidez in the main event, defending his light heavyweight title. Kudos also to Devin Haney winning the WBO welterweight championship by virtue of his easy decision win over Brian Norman. Bam Rodriguez again, by means of recap, has won the 3 belts now at 115 pounds with a knockout over Puma Martinez. And how about Abdullah Mason, who's now just 21 years old and the youngest world champion in boxing? He gets it done in the win tonight over Sam Noakes of England. Congratulations to him tonight as well. Other than that, I think we have done well. Thanks to everybody that has watched us here either live or after the fact and listened on podcast. Dan, have a great rest of the weekend. We'll talk to you Thanksgiving week.
All right, TJ, I appreciate it. Great job.
There is Dan Rafael. I'm merely TJ Rives out in Los Angeles. We'll see how my Buccaneers do on Sunday Night Football. Dan, have a great weekend. Thank you, everybody, for watching on the Big Fight Weekend YouTube page live.